the Maya civilization just explodes. They have sport, they have stadia. They are able to make observations and chart perfectly the movement of the stars.
For centuries, the fate of the great Maya civilization has been one of history's most captivating mysteries. How could a society famed for its dazzling cities, intricate calendar, and advanced knowledge seemingly vanish from its heartland?
They have one monument, and the entire back of it is covered with glyphs. It's a giant mathematical table, multiplying into the billions.
Theories have swirled like jungle mist, but what if the final pieces of the puzzle have finally clicked into place? We're peeling back the layers on the claim that, as of 2025, the true fate of the Maya has finally been solved. Forget romantic notions of alien abduction or sudden catastrophe. The answer, illuminated by cutting-edge science, is perhaps more complex and more relevant to us today than we ever imagined. Before we talk about the end, let's appreciate the beginning, or rather, the peak. The classic Maya period, roughly from 250 to 900 AD, wasn't just a few scattered villages. This was a civilization that built breathtaking city-states deep within the rainforests of Mesoamerica. Places like Tikal, Calakmul, Palenque, Copan. Imagine towering limestone pyramids piercing the jungle canopy, vast plazas bustling with activity, intricately carved monuments telling stories of kings and gods. These weren't primitive people. The Maya developed one of the world's most sophisticated writing systems, a complex understanding of mathematics, including the concept of zero, and incredibly precise astronomical observations. Their calendar system, a mesmerizing interweaving of cycles, was more accurate in some respects than the European calendar used at the time of the Spanish conquest. They managed dense populations, built extensive trade networks, and created art and architecture that still inspires awe. This was a world brimming with intellectual power, spiritual depth, and societal complexity. But to truly grasp the mystery of their decline, you need to understand just how established and vibrant this world was. How could something so seemingly permanent falter? Then, something profound happened. Starting around the 8th and 9th centuries AD, the vibrant pulse of the southern Maya lowlands began to fade. One by one, the great cities that had dominated the landscape for centuries saw their populations dwindle. Construction of monumental temples and stelae, the carved stone pillars recording royal histories, largely ceased. Royal dynasties faltered. People began abandoning these once thriving urban centers. It wasn't an overnight event, more like a slow-motion disintegration over a century or two. Archaeologists digging through the layers find evidence of the last construction phases, sometimes left unfinished, followed by silence. The jungle, always patient, began its relentless reclamation, swallowing pyramids and plazas whole. This abandonment, particularly in the southern heartland, is what scholars call the classic Maya collapse. And for generations, the question has echoed, why? Was it catastrophic warfare, unchecked disease, peasant revolts, environmental ruin, or some combination of factors? The lack of a single, clear answer has fueled endless debate and speculation. To unravel this, we needed a way to cut through the centuries of silence and the literal jungle covering the evidence. And that's exactly what technology finally allowed us to do. For decades, archaeologists hacked through dense vegetation, finding tantalizing clues but struggling to grasp the true scale of Maya settlement. The jungle guarded its secrets fiercely. Then came LiDAR, light detection and ranging. Think of it like radar but using laser pulses. Flown from aircraft, LiDAR beams penetrate the thick forest canopy, bounce off the ground below, and return. By measuring the time it takes for the light to return, sophisticated software can digitally strip away the vegetation, revealing the precise contours of the landscape underneath, including ancient structures hidden for centuries. The results? Absolutely revolutionary. Starting significantly around the late 2010s and accelerating into the 2020s, LiDAR surveys across Guatemala, Belize, and Mexico unveiled a Maya world far larger, more complex, and more interconnected than anyone had previously dared to imagine. Instead of isolated city-states, we saw vast networks of houses, palaces, defensive walls, reservoirs, agricultural terraces, and crucially thousands of kilometers of causeways, ancient highways connecting settlements large and small. We learned that even areas previously thought to be sparsely populated were actually home to significant populations. Discoveries like the sprawling city dubbed Valeriana in Campeche, Mexico, announced in late 2024, showed major urban centers existing much earlier and persisting longer than some models suggested. This wasn't just finding a few new buildings. LiDAR forced a complete rethink of Maya demographics, engineering capabilities, and land use. They weren't just surviving in the jungle, they were actively shaping it on an industrial scale. Knowing just how many Maya there were and how extensively they modified their environment adds a crucial dimension to the collapse mystery. Could their very success have sown the seeds of their downfall? The clues started pointing towards the environment itself. While LiDAR showed us the what and where, other scientific techniques began revealing the when and why of the environmental pressures the Maya faced. For years, scientists have drilled deep into lake beds and collected sediment cores, essentially time capsules preserving layers of mud, pollen, and chemical signatures from the past. Lake Chichancanab in the Yucatan Peninsula became a key site. Analyses of gypsum layers and the shells of tiny organisms preserved in its sediments provided a remarkably detailed climate record. What did they find? Compelling evidence of severe, prolonged droughts hitting the region right around the time the southern cities were declining, specifically during the terminal Classic period, roughly 800 to 1000 AD. We're not talking about a few dry years. Studies suggested rainfall reductions of 50%, sometimes even up to 70% during peak drought events, with some lasting for decades. Similar evidence emerged from stalagmites in caves, which also record rainfall patterns through isotopic analysis. This wasn't just a local dry spell, it appeared to be a major region-wide climatic shift, likely linked to natural variations in oceanic and atmospheric patterns, like shifts in the intertropical convergent zone, the tropical rain belt. Imagine a civilization heavily reliant on rainfall for agriculture and drinking water, supporting millions in densely populated cities, suddenly facing decades of drastically reduced water supply. The implications are staggering. A devastating drought certainly sounds like a smoking gun, but the emerging picture in 2025 suggests it wasn't the only factor pulling the trigger. The Maya themselves may have unintentionally made a bad situation much, much worse. The Maya were master builders. Those magnificent temples and palaces weren't just stacked stones, they were often coated in thick layers of lime plaster, giving them a brilliant white finish. Making lime plaster is resource intensive. You need to quarry limestone and then burn it at very high temperatures. The fuel for those fires? Trees, lots and lots of trees. Add to that the clearing of vast tracts of forest for agriculture to feed the burgeoning populations revealed by LiDAR, and you start to see a problem. Extensive deforestation was happening across the Maya lowlands. Computer modeling and analysis of pollen trapped in sediment cores confirm this widespread forest clearing. Now here's the crucial link scientists solidified in the early 2020s. Large-scale deforestation can actually reduce local rainfall. Trees release moisture into the atmosphere through transpiration, contributing to cloud formation and precipitation. Remove the trees and you reduce this effect. Studies simulating the Maya environment suggested that their own deforestation activities might have decreased local rainfall by a significant 5% to 15%. This might not sound like much on its own, but when overlaid onto an already severe, naturally occurring megadrought, it becomes a devastating amplifier. The Maya, in their quest to build, farm, and thrive, were inadvertently exacerbating the very environmental crisis that threatened their existence. It created a dangerous feedback loop. Drought stresses the population, requiring more land clearing for potentially less productive agriculture, which further reduces rainfall, worsening the drought. So we have the scale from LiDAR, the climate catastrophe from sediment cores, and the human impact from deforestation studies. How does this all come together into the solved narrative of 2025? The picture emerging by 2025, synthesizing decades of research boosted by these recent technological and analytical breakthroughs, points strongly towards a primary trigger: that catastrophic, prolonged period of drought during the terminal Classic period. But critically, this natural climate disaster was significantly amplified by the Mayas' own large-scale deforestation. It wasn't one single cause, but a lethal combination, a perfect storm. Imagine the cascading effects. Crops failed repeatedly. Water reservoirs, even sophisticated ones like those discovered at Tikal using natural filters, ran dry. Food and water scarcity would have become critical. This environmental stress inevitably fueled social and political turmoil. Competition for dwindling resources likely intensified conflicts between city-states, evidenced by fortifications found at some sites. Kings and elites, whose power often rested on their perceived ability to mediate with the gods and ensure prosperity, including rainfall, would have lost legitimacy. Faced with starvation, thirst, and societal breakdown, people simply voted with their feet. The LiDAR data supports this, showing gradual abandonment patterns rather than sudden destruction at many sites. People didn't just die off en masse in the cities, they left, seeking more sustainable conditions elsewhere. This synthesis, severe drought worsened by deforestation, leading to resource collapse, social unrest, and ultimately the abandonment of the southern lowland cities over several generations, is the core of the solved fate presented in 2025. It acknowledges the complexity but identifies the environmental crisis as the undeniable tipping point. But if the great cities were abandoned, does that mean the Maya civilization itself simply ceased to exist? This is where a crucial clarification needs to be made. Let's be absolutely clear. The Maya people did not disappear. The classic Maya collapse refers specifically to the decline and abandonment of the major city-states in the southern lowlands during the 8th and 9th centuries. It was a dramatic transformation, a regional demographic and political shift, but it was not the end of the Maya civilization as a whole. The popular image of a mysterious vanishing act is largely inaccurate and, frankly, a bit disrespectful to the millions of Maya people who are very much alive today. What happened was more akin to a decentralization and migration. People moved away from the environmentally stressed southern heartland, heading towards areas with more reliable water sources or different political structures, north into the Yucatan Peninsula, or up into the highlands of Guatemala and Chiapas. The collapse wasn't an extinction event, it was a period of profound crisis, adaptation, and reorganization. Focusing solely on the abandoned southern cities misses the bigger picture of Maya resilience and continuity. Understanding this difference is key to appreciating the true nuanced fate of this incredible civilization. So if they didn't vanish, where did they go and what happened next? The story continues, just in different places. While the southern cities faded, Maya civilization entered a new phase in other regions known as the post-classic period, roughly 900 to 1500 AD. In the northern Yucatan Peninsula, different cities rose to prominence, adapting to a different landscape. Think of Chichen Itza with its iconic pyramid El Castillo and its large sacred cenote, a natural sinkhole providing vital access to groundwater in a region with few surface rivers. Cenotes became crucial water sources, allowing large populations to thrive where surface water was scarce. Cities like Mayapan, a later walled capital, also flourished. Coastal trade became increasingly important during this period, connecting Maya communities around the Yucatan coast and beyond. Architecture and political structures changed, reflecting new influences and adaptations. While perhaps not reaching the same monumental scale in pyramid building as some classic southern cities, the post-classic Maya demonstrated remarkable adaptability. They reorganized their societies, leveraged different environmental resources like those essential cenotes, and maintained complex trade networks and cultural traditions for centuries, right up until the arrival of the Spanish. This demonstrates that the collapse was geographically specific, and Maya culture possessed the inherent flexibility to endure and transform in the face of profound challenges. The ultimate proof of this endurance isn't just found in stone ruins, but in living flesh and blood. Perhaps The most powerful testament against the idea of a vanished civilization is the presence of the Maya people today. Around 8 million people who identify as Maya currently live in Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, many still speaking dozens of distinct Mayan languages derived from the language of their ancestors who built Tikal and Chichen Itza. They maintain vibrant cultural traditions, agricultural practices, and social structures that have deep roots stretching back millennia. While facing modern challenges, their continued existence and cultural richness are undeniable proof that the Maya did not disappear. They adapted, they migrated, they endured conquest, and they persist. Genetic studies further link modern populations directly to those who inhabited the ancient cities. Acknowledging the living Maya is essential. They are not just descendants of a lost civilization, they are the continuation of it. Understanding the Maya's specific path through crisis and adaptation is revealing, but how does it compare to the fate of another great pre-Columbian empire that also faced its own unique challenges? It's sometimes useful to place the Maya experience in context by looking at other major civilizations of the Americas like the Inca Empire in the Andes. Both were sophisticated societies that mastered challenging environments, but their trajectories and vulnerabilities differed. The Inca Empire, flourishing later, mainly 15th and early 16th centuries, controlled a vast territory along the mountainous spine of South America. Their environment was dramatically different: high altitudes, steep slopes, and arid coastal deserts. While they also faced climatic challenges like El Niño events, their primary water sources were often glacial melt and mountain springs, managed through incredible terrace farming and irrigation systems suited to steep terrain, perhaps offering a different kind of resilience compared to the Maya's rain-dependent system in the lowlands. The Inca also had a highly centralized imperial structure with a vast road network and state-controlled storage systems, contrasting with the more decentralized network of Maya city-states. Ironically, this centralization might have made the Inca Empire more vulnerable to rapid collapse once the head, the Sapa Inca, was captured by the Spanish. The Mayas' decentralized nature, while perhaps contributing to intercity conflict during the collapse, might have also inadvertently aided their long-term cultural survival, as there was no single point of failure. Comparing them highlights how geography, climate, social structure, and resource management strategies all play critical roles in a civilization's response to crisis. The Maya collapse wasn't a universal template, but a specific story shaped by the unique conditions of the Mesoamerican lowlands. So, has the true fate of the Maya finally been solved in 2025? The evidence converging from LIDAR, climate science, and archaeology strongly points to a devastating environmental crisis, prolonged severe drought massively amplified by extensive deforestation, as the primary catalyst for the abandonment of the great classic cities in the southern lowlands. It was a complex unraveling driven by a confluence of natural cycles and human impact. But the story doesn't end there. Crucially, the Maya did not vanish. They adapted, migrated, and transformed.